Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Building Momentum Diversity and Entrepreneurship Conference. We are so glad that you're joining us. My name is Jennifer Garcia. I am one of the conference advisory board members. I am also the interim CEO of Latino Business Action Network. We are a research and education collaboration with Stanford University, serving Latino and Latina entrepreneurs. I want to thank you for your flexibility. I hope you had a chance to grab some water or maybe send a few more emails this morning. We have an excellent conversation teed up for you in today's workshop, Building Teams Fast, Great, and Diverse. Leading today's discussion is our moderator, Raj Tedla. Raj is the founder and CEO of VRT Management Group. It is a business transformation company that specializes in assisting small and medium-sized customers to reach their goals and visions. I also want to say that Raj is a mentor for Alban and mentors participants in the Stanford Latino Scaling Program. You are in excellent hands with Raj. And Raj, I'll hand it off to you and really say thank you for leading today's conversation.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I really appreciate that. And welcome everybody, all the participants who are joining us. So as Jennifer just said, basically, my name is Rajesh Tedla, and I'm the founder and CEO for VRT Management Group. And basically, VRT Management Group has been in business for the last 13 years. We have been helping small and medium-sized companies for almost the last 13 years across 18 different countries. And today, I will be joined with two very, very smart, knowledgeable people who will be helping and sharing their knowledge. The first one will be Maria Thompson. She is the founder and CEO for Agile. And then Ruben Harris, basically the founder for Career Karma. So with that, I would like to go back and introduce Maria. If you can just talk briefly about yourself.
Sure, thank you. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I am scanning the attendees list, looking for some familiar names from the Stanford program. So just honored to be here. Appreciate this opportunity to share and any lessons learned that I can share with all of you. So hopefully you avoid some of those or you enhance those lessons learned. But just a quick correction, I am a strategic advisor now for Agile Sourcing Partners. I founded the company in 2006 and we've evolved quite a bit. So I'll take a few minutes just to tell you all about it, just to put things in perspective, then I'll hand it over to my panelists. So the company's something I started from scratch, 2006. It's very similar to this economy. It was a booming economy. There was a ton of work in the utilities industry, but I saw a lack of attention to detail, follow-up, project management, and need for procurement and logistics and warehousing with the utilities industry. So that just goes to show even the big, huge companies need your help. And I think it's important for a lot of our panelists to think about how powerful it is to be a nimble and diverse business. So with that in mind, I started the company and started from day one calling it We. I had a part-time accountant, grew it from just myself and my part-time accountant to over 200 employees, 10 locations, over 200 million in revenue. And then brought on investors in the last year and a half or so ago and transitioned. And Luis Ramirez is now the CEO of Agile. And I'm in a more strategic role, advisory board, and I get to actually help take care of my children, as many of you can balance work-life balance. And then a little bit about the company. So when I started the company, I had this vision of being surrounded by smarter people that cared, that were passionate, that cared about customer service. And this will all play into our panel discussion on those attributes that I looked at from day one. I had this vision of building a very professional company that was an extension of the utility and construction industry. So as you can imagine, these are folks that need to be trusted with millions of dollars. They need to care about that detail. And they need to really care about customer service and what we do because it keeps the power on for our customers. A lot of the services were around logistics, warehousing, kitting. So we had all different types of individuals. We had very senior advanced, we have analysts with master's degrees, and then we also have folks that are just getting started with their trade careers. So keep that in mind too as you're hiring. There's different ways and attributes to get that type of talent. So I think, Rajesh, did I cover a good summary?
Yes, thank you very much, Maria. I really appreciate that. Ruben, if you can quickly share some of your background for all of our audience, that'll be great.
Hey everybody, yeah. So my name is Ruben Harris. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Career Karma. What we do is we match workers to job training programs so they could get high-paying jobs in 3 to 12 months. We have 450 boot camps, 7,000 trade schools, colleges, and universities. And anybody that downloads the Career Karma app can choose from 1 out of 6 career paths in tech. What makes our platform unique is not only will we recommend the best job training for you based off of your current goals and needs, but we'll also surround you by peers, coaches, and mentors that are in our community that will make sure that you have the guidance to start and finish the training program. Furthermore, we have a network of over 2,000 companies because we understand that most jobs are offline and come through referral. And so we'll be able to match you with the right people, the right training, the right companies at the right time. We have about 1 million people a month that come to our platform looking for career advice. And we are positioning ourselves to be the category kings of the rapid reskilling movement.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Appreciate that. So now let's get into some of the discussion. All of our audience are eagerly waiting because most of them are entrepreneurs and they really want to grow their teams. And as everybody knows, talent is one of the biggest opportunities and challenges. So let's get into something, share some of the experiences, what you both of you have, because both of you have scaled your companies to certain levels where a lot of other companies can go back and learn from you. So with that, the first question I have for both of you is, when do you start recruiting candidates as a growing company? Maria, if you can start.
Sure. So I think a lot of the foundation work with any business owner, entrepreneur is making sure you have good mentors, coaches, networking, and you're actively engaged in the community. So for me, I was highly active in many different associations, and it kind of led to later the power and the diversity of the company, because from day one, we were out hitting the ground, meeting people from all different walks of life. And I didn't use social media as much as strong as it is now and a lot of those platforms. So a lot of referral based, but no friends and family. Sorry, guys. Just especially in our line of business, it's really about the qualified candidate. And then, of course, when we had great talent, they would refer great talent just like themselves. So we had a lot of employee referral bonuses and things like that that just kind of carried throughout the business. I can add more, I think, a little bit later, but do you want me to hand it over?
Yeah, Ruben, if you can go back and just build on that. And I really want you to go back and think you and say, basically, how much time and effort did it take for you to start building your resources? Anything that you can share for our audience will be great.
Yeah, I mean, the first hire that we made after we closed our Series A was a head of talent. And the first thing that we did outside of laying out our mission statement and our vision was our guiding principles. I'm very good friends with, well, I always have very good friends, but like I had the opportunity, thank you. I had the opportunity to get to know the late, great Tony Hsieh, which is founder of Zappos. He talked a lot about these like company values and guiding principles that you want to lay out, not as just like marketing, but things that you're going to hire and fire people based off of. And we laid out what our guiding principles were. And we didn't just want to find the best talent. We wanted to find talent that also lived by these guiding principles. We wanted to create a balanced team that was well-rounded, not just people from different races and different sexes, but also different religions and all kinds of other things like that. And so to Maria's point, we definitely were able to source from friends and family and through it's not exactly her same point, but like for us, we started off with friends and family because we worked at 6 different startups before we started the company. We also are blessed to be a Y Combinator company. We're also blessed to be a Reforge network partner. So we had a lot of people that we were affiliated with. So I'll say that's how we started off, but then we set up really nice mechanisms to create inbound from social media, from press, from podcasts, from YouTube, to where like when we announced, we received like over 1,000 applications and created a very tight process that I can go into later about how to assess who's good and who's bad. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Ruben. I see two contrasting styles here. Maria was much more focused on bringing the right talent, and she said, just because your friends and family, she didn't want to hire. And for you, you were looking at it using a lot of social media, a lot of friends and family and everything else. And both the systems looks like both of you are successful in what you have done and how you have grown your people.
Yeah,
Maria,
no,
you want to add something to that?
sorry. I was just saying, I wouldn't hire friends just because they're a friend. So you can use friends and family to refer you to people, or hire family. I did do that, by the way. It was really tough on my brother and my relationship. So there's lesson, and it works for some families. So don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that depending on what you're, ideally, had I done, like, thought more of it through, I think I would have done it differently. So.
I think basically even me working with a lot of small and medium-sized companies, initially when you are like, you started with a part-time employee, what they say is they need to go back and hire for fit, just somebody they're compatible with and stuff, because the whole business is centered around the founder. But now as you're evolving, you got 20, 30 people, basically now you start bringing in systems and people and processes into that piece of it. So with that in this thing, what do you think the most important thing was for you to make the transition and while you're growing? I would like to hear from both of you because that would be something very important to our audience.
Go ahead, Ruben.
Yeah, so, outside of like laying out your guiding principles and having a tight funnel, the thing is when you're dealing with very highly qualified talent, everybody sounds good, right? Everybody's going to sound great. They're going to know how to sell themselves. And so one of the things that we came up with was something called a domain challenge. The domain challenge wasn't just for technical talent. It was for non-technical talent as well. And that process wasn't just like a random brain teaser. It was really focused on making sure that these people were taking the role seriously, and you can quickly tell who's just price shopping to try to get a offer versus like people that like really care about your company and take it seriously, and if they've played with the app or if they understand the market and things like that. I'll say that's one of the big things. And then we had a bunch of other things related to getting to know other people inside of the organizations and how to feel out offers. But I'll say the domain challenge is probably one of the biggest things that we introduced that helped out a lot.
Thank you, Ruben. Maria, you want to add something to that?
Sure. I think Ruben touched on something a little earlier that I thought was a great call out, and that's culture. It's not something you can just go to a retreat and come back and say, we are going to be the best in the world at customer service or quality or no defects. So the culture stuff you ideally start with right out of the gate. It feels like you're dreaming big when you do it. And I know for me, it was super awkward to write this giant business plan and it's just me and I have no money and no contracts. But in it, there were, again, those very similar guiding principles that Ruben mentioned, but also for us, it was our strategic initiatives or platforms or pillars of things that people could wrap their head around. And in it, it kind of gives you a visual of exactly the type of talent you need. So operations is very important at Agile, managing warehouses and detail, and product and specifications. So knowing that up front, you kind of get a roadmap of the types of resources. And I see a lot of business owners struggle with hiring roles that they're not strong at. And for me, I love the word you use when you open this up, opportunity, about hiring. It's such a relief and it's so empowering when you realize the talent that's out there and how they can take this work off your plate and you suck at it. And it's fabulous. It's like the best thing ever. It feels a little awkward at first, but you're never going to know everything as the CEO owner. You can definitely care about it and pay attention, but it's so empowering and such a great opportunity to bring your company up a level when you look at it through that lens. And unfortunately, sometimes you don't have the money to do it. So then there's ways to leverage partners and subcontractors. I know that's part of our discussion today. But once you kind of give yourself that opportunity to look at your business differently and to bring on those services, it really opens a lot of doors for you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to add one component to it. If you look at it in the last 18 months, the world has changed so much. And for you, how do you think it's going to be different going forward? One, with the lens of when you just started for the startup companies today? That is the first question I have. And it is a two-part question. The second part of it is, now with 150 to 200 employees, how would that look different? Hopefully I made it clear for both of you. I'd like to start with Ruben, if you can answer the question.
Like, how has the pandemic changed hiring?
Yes.
Say like the biggest thing is obviously like remote work and hybrid work, and increased opportunities for like the talent that's available that can work for your organization, but also increase competition because like, you know, the tech world is booming like crazy. I think this pandemic actually like accelerated the tech world faster, and it was actually one of the best things that could have ever happened for the tech industry. And with that said, there's a lot of money that's going around, so a lot of the um, people that you want to work for your organization have very nice offers, and so you have to obviously be competitive from a salary, benefits, and equity perspective, but you also have to be very clear about what you stand for and what your purpose is, and be very um, clear about the mission that you're standing for to convince people to leave potentially a competitive offer from a financial perspective to follow you in pursuit of a goal that adds value to the world, but also could be lucrative, but more on a like equity side of things. Um, the other thing that I think the pandemic did is that it's oriented workers towards more mission-driven companies, because the pandemic kind of like shone a light on the things that are really important in life, like family and friends and kids and parents and stuff like that. So their BS filter on a company is much higher. That's why things like company values and guiding principles are really important, because people don't want to work for anything that doesn't have purpose, because life is short. And so if you're obviously the best marketing is a mission, but if you're talking the talk, you need to be walking the walk, and people can see that quickly. So I would say that's probably the biggest things that I'm seeing.
So I just have a quick clarification question from Ruben, because that would be very helpful, because I noticed a lot of it before I go to Maria. So here, basically, you're talking about culture. So let us say somebody is not fully ingrained in your culture, but he's one of the key, he or she, doesn't matter, technically very, very key for you, product or service, what you're offering. So as a founder, as the leader of the business, you will have that moment. How do you make a decision in a situation like that? They may not be embracing the values, what your company stands for, but from a skill perspective and a talent perspective, they're very, very critical for your organization.
But you got to assess that early on. I'm not going to bring anybody if I'm not feeling that vibe. Um, One of the first things that we'll do in the beginning is like we'll send out different things that represent our organization. For example, Harvard Business School did a case study on career commerce, so we'll send that. We'll send why Gary Tan invested in career comma, why SoftBank invested in career comma, what we stand for, and like different pieces, so they know what our culture is, and then really emphasize that through the whole conversation. And we've actually said no to people that are very skilled, but would be a bad fit in the organization, because a bad hire is like expensive and toxic, and it can affect your whole organization. Like a very good question that I like to ask is like, would you want 10 more of this person in this organization if you hired them? And like that's a good way to really assess like culture. Like, yeah, they're skilled, but you want 10 a-holes in your organization? Probably not, so.
Great viewpoint. I always keep asking that, because that's one of the biggest thing, a challenge comes up in small and medium-sized companies. And Maria, I would give it to you as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a couple of housekeeping things you want to do, no matter what size company you are, is looking at what type of skill sets you're looking for and creating a matrix around that. And culture is a part of the weighting criteria. So the way you assess your culture varies by every company. For as an example, though, for Agile, customer service was non-negotiable. So we had a 3 or 4 different ways we'd ask about customer service, and it really was up to the panelists. And we'd always have 3 interviews, so 3 different people with perspective. And it used to always be face to face. And now, obviously, with pandemic, you've got virtual. But that process helps you be disciplined and thoughtful about what you're looking for. As we matured, we started to look at DISC assessments and determine this is like a personality profile, a business acumen profile, how they operate under duress. We also did personality assessments, and these tools are relatively inexpensive. But if you're looking for somebody who's a high influencer, who's going to get out there and be a cheerleader and really persuade the customer to win contracts, but when they take the assessment, they're actually a conscientious person that wants to be in a spreadsheet alone, introverted, not working with people. It's pretty powerful to find that out in advance. And again, there's process around that. So I think those things are very helpful with just trying to help you kind of get past the smoke screen in some interviews, because people do know how to answer questions the way to get a job. And especially nowadays with all the interviews they're getting. Do you want me to circle back to the question about how hiring is different? And
yes, Maria, definitely. That would be very helpful.
You bet. I think that one of the things that caught us early prior to the pandemic is as we grew national, we had 10 locations. Actually, after the second and third location, for me as a leader, you couldn't be there. You couldn't be hovering over them and saying, did they show up at 8 and leave at 5? And it really became about what metrics do we have in place? What collaboration tools do we have? And of course, now there's so much. I mean, there's Basecamp and Teams and Slack and WhatsApp and Zoom. And I think all of you need to think about that. Even when there's just a handful of you, you can have people work anywhere now. The sky's the limit. I mean, the opportunities are fantastic. But at the same time, it doesn't help you to hire a 6-figure person if you can't help them be successful and help kind of guide them. You can't just throw them to the wolves and expect them to succeed because they're talented and smart. So you have to think about what type of structure and foundation and tools and metrics do we have in place to ensure that they're on the right track, and help them kind of guide them along, especially as they're getting started 30, 60, 90 days.
Thank you very much. So, Maria, I'm going to come back to you again and ask you one additional question on pretty much the diversity and the inclusive piece of it. Yep. So I heard from Robin a little bit about how the values drive a lot of those things. So from your side, basically, how does diversity and inclusiveness fit into your whole hiring process?
Yeah, I think for me, very fortunate, started the company in California that is very rich with diversity from every direction. I mean, fantastic. And I'm a native Californian, but as we started to grow into regions and have customers in Oklahoma and Arkansas, where there's not as much diversity, it did get tougher. And even in the Northeast, we had some challenges. And I think part of it is just letting people realize that there's open doors, there's opportunities, and don't judge a book by its cover. It's gotten so much better than even when I started the company 15 years ago. So being intentional from day one and really bringing on that great talent. And then even in your interviewing panel. So I'd have 2-3 employees. And so it's not like there's a lot of people that can help me interview, but my mentors and my sponsors and my advocates and my coach, all the people that I surround myself, they came from all different perspectives as well. And I think that's important for candidates to see. Is not everybody look the same or have the same beliefs or the same way of thinking. And that's so powerful for all of us to really, and that's what creates all that, ingenuity and innovation. So I think that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you. Robin, anything you would like to add to that?
Well, I like what Maria said earlier about changes related to communication. Just because since we are in a more flexible, remote, hybrid world, on top of skills and diversity and values, like you want to find people that are great communicators, not just verbally, but also through like text and email, through GIF, through emoji. And the reason why I think this is related to diversity is I saw one of the questions was like cognitive diversity, which my answer may not be perfect in that regard, but I think that like people that come from different backgrounds don't just speak different languages, they speak different slang. They have different idioms that they are used to, different movies that they watch, different music that they listen to. And so you want people that know how to communicate in a tone that vibes with everybody, which is harder as you become, not just more national, but more international and things like that. So, you want to assess for the way that they communicate across platforms. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about the language and how you communicate and what words you use and things like that.
Thank you, Ruben. And you bring up a good point. So one of our participants has asked the question, do you even consider cognitive diversity? Briefly, Ruben, you mentioned, but Mary, I want to see if there is anything you would like to add on that point, because that's the first time I'm hearing somebody talking about cognitive diversity.
For sure. And I think actually some of our questions around customer service actually help with that, just how they empathize and how they deliver great, excellent customer service and what their perspective on it. It's like interviews are like peeling back layers of an onion. You're just trying to just really get to understand what makes that person tick and makes them thrive. And at any company, you want them to be successful. You're just trying to figure out if you're the right home for them. The other thing you want to be careful with, I've seen not only just for my company, my husband's company and others, is I see a tendency to kind of use the same process because you get comfortable with it. And that can get you in a rut as well of hiring the same type of perspective and same type of individuals, even in a group like accounting or finance. Like you want to make sure you can kind of infuse different ways to mix it up and get that flair in your process. So I'm very process oriented. So I watch stuff like that. So I make sure there's a continuous improvement effort around that. And then there's others that are very casual and they go and get coffee and they hire right there. So, I mean, there's all different ways of doing it.
So we spoke a lot about the recruitment process of it, but I really want you to go back and touch or give a couple of experiences or best practices from the onboarding side of it. Now we hired them and we brought them into the company. And if you notice that basically a lot of people are hired for their skills, but they generally leave the companies because of their manager or lack of an onboarding or some of those things. So anything you can shed light for our audience on that, that'll be great.
Sure.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Ruben.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, sure. Just piggybacking on my process from day one, very important to me to onboard a person professionally. You spent all that time, they've spent all that time. It's an investment. It's a big move for them. They're trusting that they're moving to the right place. So even when I didn't have a HR manager and later when I did, and then a VP of HR, we kept bringing up our game on how we would treat individuals at the company and the packages that we'd offer. But very important that they have business cards, very important they have a computer, very important that they know the holidays and the vacation. I mean, just super tactical stuff, but get it done. Like it's not that hard. It's annoying sometimes, but get it done, put it in a binder, have an orientation, PowerPoint or video, but take the time to do that up front. And it was so easy as we'd hire 10, 15 people a week and you just hand them the binder. And then trying to make sure you have like very good descriptions and very good essential functions. We're goal-oriented company, so we have SMART goals for every employee. We had a great process with ADP. It's been enhanced. But thinking about, again, those tools, how are these people going to be successful? How are your teammates going to work together and how are they going to collaborate? So go ahead, Ruben.
Yes, I would echo all of that as far as like making sure people have the right equipment and swag and clarity on policies and things like that. I would also, something that we do is like this thing called Who's Who, where we have people like do the 16 personalities test so you can know Myers-Briggs. Like, so from a psychological perspective, we ask them which guiding principle resonates with them the most. We make it clear which OKR they're responsible for, they're assigned to, whether they are a wrangler or whether they are a member to drive the growth of that number that they own. We asked their favorite movie, their favorite book, so we could understand them on a well-rounded perspective. And then after we kind of like put that together in the presentation, they've had a time to review everybody on the team. It becomes like it's like a yearbook, right? You kind of like get to know each other by like looking through it, and then we'll just kick it on the weekend and do something that's unrelated to work. So like we'll ask like, what was your first job and how did you break into tech? Or we'll there's like this tool on Zoom which is like a virtual carpool, like in a different country, and it's like there's a lot of like really cool tools that you could do to like create icebreakers. So we'll do that as well. So try to make it fun, make it light on top of all the like legal check in the box stuff, you know.
Yeah, and I think there's an element that gets forgotten is the managers of the new hires need help too. We kind of forget sometimes, and directors and VPs and executives. And so our SMART goals and coaching and mentor go all the way to the top. Everybody's learning. But even a thing, don't take it for granted, but like a job motivation survey, super easy. But for a new manager that hasn't really managed people before, you can have them give the job motivation survey to their associates just to get a sense of what makes their team tick. And I mean, it's very simple questions like, being appreciated is your top priority, or pay is the most important thing to you, or work-life balance. And it's 10 different things. And the associate fills that out, and that manager gets a very quick lens perspective on what drives that individual. It doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% true, and it doesn't mean it changes. But again, giving your manager some tools too, and making sure you keep an eye on that so that individual is successful and everybody's kind of successful.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Ruben and stuff. So basically, you're talking about a lot of the initiatives and things you have done. Do you have some metrics that you use to measure this and monitor this and have some corrective actions? How do you ensure that these are being implemented and consistently? When you're small, it is much easier to go back and measure and monitor. But as you're going to the 30, 40, 50 people and managers are coming along. So anything you can share on the metrics and how did you manage that?
Go ahead, Ruben. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, we use a tool called Mesh. Some of our colleagues use a tool called Lattice to like track performance after somebody's in an organization. I think you know, communication from talent perspective is important, but also like from a leadership perspective as founders, we got to make sure everybody has visibility into what's going on. So Mesh and Lattice have been the way that we track things, but we'll also leverage different Slack bots in the tool as well to understand what's going on. But yeah, those are our main tools. And obviously we have a CRM and dashboards and things like that. I think I answered your question. I'm not sure.
Thank you. Go ahead, Maria.
So we have just an overall satisfaction survey once a year, the whole company. How are you doing? How's management? Be ready for some brutal responses. Be ready to take action, because that's one of the worst things you can do is do a survey and not take action. On just a weekly basis and bi-weekly and monthly, depending on the group, there's manager meetings. Again, that's all tracked in ADP, and there's SMART goals, all tracked in ADP. So you establish scoring criteria and functions. I did this from when I had just one employee. I said, we're gonna have SMART goals 1 to 3. And I remember how surprised a lot of people were, and thankful that I cared and we cared as it grew into their development. So not everybody does that. My husband's company doesn't have any sort of performance review process. They don't really have any sort of goal. So again, trying to help folks kind of relate. It's not one recipe that works for everybody. But again, we're in a highly structured, very data-driven industry, high risk, millions of dollars. The power could go out if you supply the wrong transformer. So we kind of had to have a lot of that structure to make sure people were on the right track, that they were getting the tools they needed, and then being successful. And then as a service company, that is the company, is the people. So you can't spend enough money on people and your tools for them and metrics. And then the collaboration tools are good metrics just to see who's active and are they, you know, kind of falling off the planet a little bit, or do they need help? I mean, and it's just being kind of aware is part of the process of monitoring your team. Oh, and then I guess the biannual review of overall scores of all the employees and a ranking, and a discussion on high performers, succession planning on a monthly basis, who's at risk and why, and what happens if they get hit by a bus, and then promotions and whatnot once a year. And then discussion about gaps and resource planning and this is with the management and senior leadership team.
Thank you very much. Both of you shared a lot of wonderful things. We are coming to the Q&A piece of it. So before we go to the Q&A piece, I have some specific questions because we have a lot of founders here. And one of the things we want to go back and hear is, what was one of the biggest lessons or lessons learned from you, from all of your experiences, that they should focus on? So I have a specific question for you, Ruben. So Credit Karma is helping people break into tech, right? And it is also building a massive peer mentorship movement. So what advice do you have for founders who want to go back and build access and equity outside their companies?
Well, I mean that's essentially our business. We're building a marketplace, and so whenever you're dealing with the marketplace, you're dealing with chicken and egg problems, right? So, one side of the marketplace, which are the job training programs, they're the ones that pay Career Karma for access to people that want training. But the North Star is making sure that our students or potential applicants or people in our community are served well, because if they can't trust us, then everything goes down the drain. So you have to pick a side, and you have to have those values again, that we talked about earlier. Um, I think if you're not running a business that's mission driven and it's more like, let's say, an enterprise tech company, this is more on like the ethics side of things. Like, just don't treat people badly. Like, it's like the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Like, just would you want somebody doing that to you? No, so don't do it. It's pretty clear, So that's how I would think about it.
Okay, thank you. So Maria, basically you have very, very systematically built a business to 200 employees and stuff. So what compromises were you unwilling as you were growing the businesses? So what were some of the challenges? What were the key takeaways? And you said, you know what, this is something which we are not going to compromise on. Anything that you can share for their founders?
Core values, integrity, just no way, no shape or form. No matter how skilled or talented they are, it's just not going to work if they don't have a sense of integrity, or they break rules, and not, I mean, pretty serious rules. Obviously there's a balance there, but I think you mentioned a little bit about some lessons learned. I think for me, I used to settle for 40% of something or 60%. Don't do that. Get the right talent. It costs so much more to swap them out, and it hurts morale. My goodness. And that was hard on me, because there's been individuals that are great people, but they just weren't what they said in the interview, or when it came time to work at the company, they just it didn't match. And I know sometimes I would take longer than needed, or than I should say. And one time, the team actually they didn't cheer. It wasn't disrespectful, but they were relieved. Like, they were like, oh my gosh, finally. And I really hurt me, because I thought the person was such a nice person, and they're a great person, but I felt bad as a leader that I did that to the team and didn't realize it. So just some quick, easy lessons learned there with that, and taking the time to really hire correctly as best you can. But at the same time, don't get in your own way. Like, I think I overthought it in many ways, and I didn't realize the potential that these new teammates could bring the company to. So that's exciting too. And make sure you leverage your network and your mentors and friends and coaches, because they can help you kind of get over those hurdles too when you're scared about pulling the trigger.
Thank you, Maria. Ruben, there is a request from one of our audience to go back and see if you can elaborate a little more on pick a side when you're building a marketplace. The first question is, go back and elaborate on that. And the second part of it is, how do you operationalize it? It'll be great if you can give some insights to that.
Yeah, I mean, getting a marketplace off the ground is like one of the hardest things you can ever do, right? It's like Uber and Lyft, for example. You can choose to focus on drivers, or you can focus on riders. And in the beginning, like, it was all about just like making sure that the drivers are taken care of. They get referral bonuses, they get rewards. There's always like a flow of people in there. For us, even though there's so many different job training programs that are out there, you can go after all of them, which are technically your customers, and like all like, you can just go in that direction, or you can only focus on a few schools and then spend the majority of your time on the other side of the market. How do you operationalize it? This is related to the other question that I see, which is our guiding principles, right? So one of our guiding principles is put first things first, right? So that's related to prioritization. When you're dealing with being the number one marketplace that matches workers or to job training programs, a natural opportunity is getting into staffing. And a lot of companies reach out to us looking for talent, and there's a lot of money there. And it's very easy for us to go in that direction, but have we like absolutely conquered becoming the number one player and the dominant place for bootcamp students coming through the pipeline with job training programs yet? No. So we want to like get that down first. Another guiding principle is like do more with less, right? So like even though we've raised about $12 million in the last couple of years since we launched, um, we like when we raised our Series A, we were profitable for the last 5 months, and so like that's something like we really focused on like being scrappy and and not spending money for no reason, and like really instilling this type of mindset into our staff. And the reason why I bring it up is because when you think about operationalizing things, you're going to be running a lot of experiments, and it's very easy to run experiments and burn through cash. Um, it's very important that if you're going to run an experiment, that you know what a good outcome is. And it's okay if it's a failed experiment happens, as long as you learn something and you iterate on it. Um, so I would say like those. That's my answer for that.
Thank you, Ruben. So, Maria, I have one question for you on this piece of it, on the guiding principles. I know we spent quite some time, but most of the people think that guiding principles are really like high level, not actionable and stuff. So how do you make them actionable, and how do you go back and stress those so that everybody's understanding them and following them? That's one of the great questions we have from the founders.
Yeah, I was actually writing my notes down when I so busted on. So again, we called it customer service and culture. And for me, when I started out, I just listed them out. But then as the company got bigger, we'd have offsites where we talk about it and we say, what does agile mean? Who are we as a company? And it became a lot more collaborative, inclusive, and it evolved. But some of the basic ones were always there. So do the right thing even when no one's looking. And there's ways to like test for that, just even in like a quiz in the interview. And that's what I said about the integrity process. Like we own our mistakes, like we have to, because it could be catastrophic if we don't. And that's really scary for some people. So you can ask around that, like what's the biggest mistake you ever made and how'd you own it? Do things right the first time. So on top of that, because the second time and third time to rework, it's going to cost you even more time. Devil's in the details. So that's attention to detail. And we have accuracy rates and measurements around our processing and data entry issues and whatnot. So that kind of tie to that. Happy employees make for happy customers. So we played with different things. And I know Tony showed you how to get where, the mirror there to see if you're smiling while you're talking, because they can feel that. Customers can feel that. Having fun and making it easy to work with the company. So that's a harder one. That was one that as we dealt with more complex issues, it was hard to kind of screen from the customer that it was complicated, and they don't want to hear about how the sausage is made. They want it to taste delicious. So, and they want you to be happy about it, and it's a good time. So that one was a little bit tougher, is like trying to make it easy for the customer, and then really working as a team behind the scenes to get that hard work done. So I think, does that help a little bit?
Yes, definitely that helps a little bit. So basically we have 1 more minute before we close it. One parting statement, few words, both of you, Ruben and Maria. So I'll start with you, Ruben. One statement for people to take away, summarizing everything, or anything, best advice from you.
Hire ahead of talent earlier. Um, this is like I think that a lot of people wait for that hire, um, and like I would say it's like talking about lessons learned. If you do get a good hire, make sure you don't just focus on getting them in the door and giving them a great onboarding experience. Make sure that you invest in them to retain them, because breaking into tech is one thing, staying in tech is another thing. Like something that we do is like every 6 months we'll do a pay bump, and every 12 months we'll do an equity refresh, and then if they hit a company goal, there's a bonus. But like you really want to think about not just the process getting in, but also keeping them.
Thank you. Maria?
So we're in a highly relationship, people, teamwork industry. And one of my favorite answers when I'd ask about the golden rule or customer service is someone that would say, treat others as they would want to be treated. Not how you, how they. So that means they are putting in perspective that individual and what they want, and they're listening and they're empathizing. And it's so important because we work with a customer that is dealing with thousands of suppliers, very stressed out, and you might want tons of information, but they want 2 seconds of an answer, or they want a text message, or they want a smoke screen, whatever. But that was one of my favorite ways to see if somebody really gets it on what we do in our industry.
Thank you very much, Ruben and Maria. We really appreciate a lot of good feedback from everybody else, thanking for the insights we provided and stuff. So thank you very much. And all the founders, I hope you got some good insights into going back and bringing in the talent you have. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.